Hey there. In this video, I want to touch base on verifying and identifying and what this means and how important it is. You're probably wondering what anyone in their right mind wonders. What do we do with our loved one once they say yes to help? Now, what are we going to do? And this is where verify and identify comes in. Verify comes to mind since it's the first letter from the acronym VOB, which stands for Verification of Benefits. That's insurance talk. And that lands us right on the doorstep of the number one qualification in putting together a change plan for a loved one. And that is the financial cost consideration for treatment for most families. And so it's very important that we consider this and demystify it, since your loved one is going to say yes, and we're going to have a change plan that's actionable and attainable, because most often that means treatment of some sort, whether it's outpatient treatment or residential treatment or medication management treatment or therapy or something like this. And the reason for that is when the acuity of the seriousness of a situation is high enough to warrant an intervention, what's usually required for a change plan is something more than just a Band-Aid. And so I want to really get into this because it's really important that if your loved one is up to 26 years of age, they can be under a parent's insurance policy. And because of the exchange, the ACA, Affordable Care Act, they can get their own insurance, typically, in pretty good shape. But we have to talk about this before the intervention, because once they say yes, we have to have this whole plan in place. Treatment generally falls into three categories. There's free care that is funded by the state or the Fed or non-government organizations, often churches or community groups of some kind. Now, the downside to this, if it's a church group with which your loved one, identified loved one, does not believe in, for example, a Christian program that requires they go to church 3 times a day and such, the likelihood that your loved one's going to leave against clinical advice and not complete the program is quite high. So we want to think about the congruence with the program and the person too. But just keep in mind that there are really good public and free care options available that are not religious programs. And then there's some awful treatment opportunities that you'd really want to avoid if you can. But know this, since Congress passed the Paul Wellstone and Pete Domenici Health Parity Act of 2008, it means that group health plans and health insurance providers have to cover mental health to the same extent as they do with physical health. So that is, they have to treat your broken brain and heart and spirit with the same care that they treat your broken leg or foot or kidney. Now, in reality, it doesn't always work that way. Oftentimes I hear stories of insurance companies that are refusing coverage, but thanks to Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, parity was expanded. And again, notwithstanding that oftentimes insurance companies are rascals and they'll do whatever they can to try to avoid paying for treatment, this parity notion really changed the field of rehab coverage and treatment coverage and opened it up for clinical care for many more people than was the norm prior to that. Back to the VOB, which again means verification of benefits. The VOB step, it's really key since it helps us answer how we're going to tee up care for our loved one once they say yes to help. And with a PPO policy or an EPO policy, you have typically two types of coverage: one, out-of-network benefits and in-network benefits. I'm a big fan of using an in-network provider because you're going to have generally more consistent care. Not always the case, but generally that is the case. There's also less fraud going on in the in-network treatment field or sector than there is in the out-of-network treatment sector. how to get your VOB done. You have to call the number on the back of that card, the insurance card. And if it's your loved one's insurance card, you want to ask to run a verification of benefits for mental health, eating disorder, or complex trauma. You want to tell them what it is, what kind of treatment you're seeking, or substance use. One insurance company, which is United Behavioral Health, they will refuse to run benefits unless the member is on the phone, which makes it very difficult to run benefits for a person who is having an intervention done on them. But email me if that's the case with you, and I'll talk you through how to get through that. But know this, that the world of rehab providers is, like many things, really the wild, wild west. And so I encourage you to connect with one of the providers I suggest as reputable. There are many across the nation. They're on our tried and true treatment providers page. Know this, that I don't have a financial relationship with the treatment centers located on that page. Instead, they're just people that I've come to know and trust, and that rise to the level of care that I would send a family member to them. If you're one of the few families where money is no object when considering your budget for recovery services, it allows me to breathe a sigh of relief, because the puzzle of care for your loved one is either easier in many ways when worrying about resources is the heaviest weighted qualification. And again, for most families, that's the number one qualification. So you'll still want to do a review of benefits. But if you're going to pay cash, if you're going to be self-pay, you'll want to identify the type of care, the length of care, the personality of care best fits your situation and need. And that goes for both self-pay and insurance pay programs. Treatment centers have personalities, just like you and I do. And as such, you're going to get along better with certain people, and I'll get along better with certain people. And in a treatment environment, it's important that it's comfortable enough. And I don't mean the sheets or the sofas, thread count or furniture, but instead, I mean like a cultural congruency between the treatment provider and the patient. So for example, if you have a gay loved one and you're sending them to a treatment center where everybody's straight and they don't really know how to language or care for a person who is queer, that's an issue. If you're a person of color and you're looking at a treatment center that has no people of color on their staff, or is in an area where people of color are not being treated in the treatment center you're looking at, that's a point to consider, because cultural congruency in treatment is really important. And that just means that the personality and the place matches in some ways the patient, so that a treatment experience is had rather than a person like going in the closet with their truth and not being able to be open and honest in their treatment experience. It's just like thank God I'm married and I haven't had to deal with this, but it's not dissimilar to Match.com, where people look for the right fit of what's going to suit them. Likes, dislikes, food, setting, location. It's really a brand club that you want to look for in a treatment center or provider that will fit the wants and needs and likes of your loved one. And please don't just go on their website, which is a marketing brochure. Some of the worst programs I know have the best websites, and the best reference is from someone you know who has had a meaningful experience with a certain program or a system of care. Also, I'll say again, review the tried and true treatment provider list on this site, as well as ask your friends for suggestions of treatment programs that they've had experience with or experience with one of their loved ones. Let's ask this question. What makes someone promise to provide fair care and follows through with that promise? That's the sort of question that I want you to ask yourself as you're looking for the right treatment for your loved one. And that means fair care financially, fair care clinically, fair care in terms of what they're telling your patient, your loved one, and also what's their history been. In our world of treatment, there are what we call sentinel events, and that is deaths on the unit. You can either look that up online to find out the number of and regularity of sentinel events in a treatment program. But those are important questions to ask. How safe is your loved one really at a treatment center? Also, these are not all going to fit everyone that's looking for treatment for a loved one, but these are the pillars to finding fair care as I do it. If the program is not for profit or for profit, I like to ask the question, who is the owner? Is ownership and operations team clearly listed and visible on the website? Can you look them up? Do you see if there are pending litigation against the program for wrongful death suits or the like? Remember this, that some nonprofits aren't great and many for-profits rank as the best and vice versa. So it's important to ask those questions I mentioned, as well as, do you buy leads or sell leads or admissions? Believe it or not, in this world of treatment, the use of body brokers and human trafficking is, well, it's illegal in this realm of treatment, but it's also rampant. And some of the worst providers rake in millions and millions and millions while riding this wave of buying admissions. You want to make sure that you steer clear of any program involved in patient brokering. You also want to investigate, how does the program decide if you or the loved one are a good fit? Do they really have a full, thorough phone assessment? Do they ask for previous treatment records? If the person you're following is just following a script, you may hear that. Are they asking questions that are really trying to get to the bottom of who the person is? Do they need treatment for substance use, eating disorders, or mental health? Because you want to take that information and make sure that your loved one is in a program that treats what ails them. And likewise, if your loved one has substance abuse, eating disorder, and mental health needs, you want to make sure that you're looking at an integrated treatment program that's not just going to put the eating disorder on the shelf while they treat the substance use needs. It's really important to look at the assessment that is done. That is what they're asking you even before the intervention, and trying to see if the person's the right fit. That they're not just basic questions, and that the first question isn't, what insurance do you have? It's important to know and really own this, that every treatment center is not right for every person. And so is the person you're communicating with an employee of the program, or are they a member of a call center that is employed to close leads, like you were buying a steak? It's good to ask, what is the state of the program's alumni program? Not state like California or Oregon, but the state of things. If you're working with an interventionist, ask the question, is the interventionist paid by the rehab? Is the interventionist credentialed? If they're paid by the rehab, that's a big conflict, since they're going to try to steer your loved one to the program paying their fee, no matter the fit. And that's my experience. And are you given options for help regardless of ability to pay? If your insurance won't fit there, you can't afford a certain treatment center, are they suggesting another program that might be a better fit based on the financial realities of your family? Other things to ask, do they have a family program? And if they don't have one, I would say consider moving right along. Any program that does not include family treatment as part of the equation is not top of list for me. Is the client care looking more like a 12-step program, like AA, where they have 3-4 AA meetings a day? Or is it truly a clinical program? Or is it both? Ask, what is the clinical approach? These are all questions that you want to ask and know and come to an understanding of, to see if you, one, feel comfortable with their approach and their work, but also their history, and taking the mystery out of what kind of care they provide. Because it's not throwing a dart at the dartboard to try to hope that you're going to find the right treatment. It's really, every family owes it to themselves to do this due diligence for the right treatment, for the right care for their loved one. I'd also ask, for the daily schedule, what happens in the evening, on the weekend? How is medication dispensed? What are the costs in writing? And you want a written financial agreement. If you're using insurance for coverage and the provider is in network, you may find it easier than using your out of network benefits these days. But that's up to you to decide how you're going to make that work. Generally, your in network deductibles and copays are much lower than out of network deductibles and copays. Remember, finding the best treatment available at the necessary price it's something that every family has to deal with in some way. And so you're not alone in this part. And if you take the pillars that I covered to heart, it will go a long way. Treatment selection really means a lot. And going with your gut is something I've heard families report they did when they selected a previous treatment provider, to which I want to scream, because usually we have an instinct based on something that we have some knowledge around. And for most families, finding the treatment center for their loved one, it's the first time they've done that. Picking a complementary treatment provider is a skill. And if it's your first or second time doing it, just slow down and seek counsel of others who have had great treatment experiences. Just know this, that the stakes are so high in good treatment and getting good treatment that I want to help you do whatever you can to avoid anything but a superior treatment experience or program or place.